Hello again. The thumbnail to this video shows Labour leader Kier Starmer in two images taken an hour or two apart. In the first, he is at Chatham House and addressing ordinary British people. The second shows him when he was making a video for a Muslim audience about the importance of Islamophobia Awareness Month. Can anybody spot the difference between those two pictures? Why, that's right. He's taken off his poppy to speak to the Muslims in case they are upset or offended by the sight of it. It has now been observed that other Labour MPs are playing this very same game, and on Twitter there are before and after pictures of people like Lisa Nandy, who have removed their poppies when they're meeting Muslims. In the description to this video I give a link to a news item about this. We are bound to ask what's going on here, and just when wearing a poppy in the run-up to Armistice Day in Britain became a controversial act. In Starmer's case, he was wearing his poppy when giving a speech about Gaza, in which he refused to condemn Israel, and then he whipped it off when he made a video aimed at a Muslim audience. On one level, there's nothing surprising about his doing so, because this is a man without any principles or strong opinions about anything. He wishes to be all things to all people. So to avoid losing votes in any quarter, he will pretend to be whatever he thinks his audience wants him to be. That's fair enough. We all know he's a two-faced weasel, and none of us are likely to be taken aback to see him playing this game. The question is really, why are Muslims likely to be put off by the sight of a poppy at this time of year? The answer to this question is quite obvious, although nonetheless shocking for that. All white British people whose families have their roots in this country for centuries will have relatives who served in the British Army. Fathers, uncles, grandfathers, great-grandfathers and so on, who fought in the First and Second World Wars, to say nothing of those who did national service in the 1950s, and indeed right up to the early 1960s. We must remember that conscription did not end in this country until 60 years ago. It's not ancient history. This means that every white British person has an affinity with the armed forces of the country, and the poppy therefore has a personal resonance for them. The case is altered for Muslims and many other immigrants and their families. Before going any further, I will say that I am quite aware that 1.5 million Indians fought on our side in the Great War, and in fact I shall be mentioning this subject specifically in a video later this week. However, for the vast majority of Muslims living in Britain, the poppy means nothing at all. Many of them, perhaps most, feel a primary allegiance to other countries or to their religion, rather than the visceral recognition which most people whose roots lie deep in British history feel for the poppy and its symbolism. For me, the poppy brings to mind at once my father and grandfather, who were both in the army. My grandfather used to put a portrait of Field Marshal Haig on the mantelpiece on Armistice Day, because he served under Haig. He was in the army from 1914 right up until 1919. It was interesting that when the pro-Hamas march passed through Whitehall the other day, somebody in the crowd sprayed graffiti on the plinth of the statue of Haig. What do they care about the First World War? The hazards of having millions of people living in Britain for whom the poppy either means nothing at all or who are actually offended by the sight of it should be obvious to anybody, and pandering to their feelings, if that is how they feel, is a truly terrible idea.